What paranormal experience convinced you that ghosts are real? Never really believed, not sure if I still do, but there were some odd happenings at the movie theater I worked at in college. One theater in particular was super weird. Every time something malfunctioned or generally strange happened during the day, it was always in that one. But more importantly, I was cleaning it by myself one morning and it was completely empty, but heard a human-like groan 6 feet in front of me. Heard it again, same exact voice/sound, a few months later, but this time in the break room, and it was even louder and closer. Cut my break short and ran LOL. Then he did shit like slap the popcorn scooper off the machine to the floor, and one time my table was shoved really hard while I was working at it. Nobody was around, nothing could have fallen on it. Some events can be explained as logical happenings, but not those. Not sure what to think other than it's strange and might as well play along that it's a ghost LOL. Despite the occasional spookiness, the job was fun. It was only on very quiet, very slow days he'd make an appearance, but most days we were busy. It was always when you'd least expect him. I'd spend long late night shifts until 2 a.m. almost completely by myself in some halls and theaters, totally creeped and ready for a show, and I'd get nothing. It was always like in the mornings/afternoons when I'm minding my business he decides to groan at me. Edit, just clarifying sentences better. I was camping with my husband and his family at a small, remote lake in our state. Our state, NM, has always had many stories of paranormal activity just about everywhere. Well, on this camping trip, there were about 10 of us off the shore of the lake and one other group of people camping, maybe like 6 of them, at the next site over off the shore. It was nighttime and both our group and the other were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, telling stories, when all of a sudden we all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling out for help. The other group of campers asked us if we had any children in the group. We didn't. Neither did they. But we were all positive we were hearing a little girl and decided to search the area we heard the noises from together. Rather quickly we found something. There was a field behind our campsites, and we all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from us in the field, making the noises. We all agreed this thing looked maybe 6 feet tall, skinny, and white as can be. Everyone got quiet, but we were all together still and made our way closer to investigate. Whatever it was that we saw started backing off as we got closer, until it disappeared beyond some trees. Every single person in both campsites was freaked out by this, and that night while we tried to sleep, we continued to hear those little girl calling for help sounds. It gives me chills to think back on this. Around 1 p.m., me and my brother was at a grocery store and we bumped into one of his friends from high school. They greeted each other and made some small talk. I also said hi since we were schoolmates. That night, around 8 p.m., my brother received a call that his friend who was in a coma for 12 hours just died. He thought he was receiving a prank call since we just met the guy 7HRS earlier. Wow, actually many stories like this, where someone has a, seemingly, normal interaction with someone and later finds out they were injured/incapacitated at the time and have recently died. It's almost like we can go tie up some loose ends and visit people in that state between worlds. Thanks for sharing. I was en route home from a 12-day vacation. Driving a pickup pulling a fifth-wheel RV. It was about 11 p.m. on a Saturday night in late July and I was about 2 hours from home, trying to make it home yet that night. I was in a very rural area where there is almost no one living on about a 20-mile stretch of road. There is only one combination gas station/tavern/motel on here and it's heavily wooded on both sides. It is county maintained and fenced at the tree line. The shallow ditches had been mowed and the grass was about 6 inches high. I only saw a couple of cars on this whole stretch of road. I was going only about 50 miles per hour because it is heavily populated with deer. I saw movement ahead so I immediately slowed more. As I passed I saw it was a young woman. Tall, fit brunette, wearing a crop top, pleated skirt, and stockings. Walking with the traffic, just off of the shoulder. I immediately thought car trouble, though I had not passed a disabled car, or fight with boyfriend/driver and was put out. I pulled to the side of the road, hit the emergency flashers and grabbed the flashlight to check on her. When I got to the rear of the camper, there was no one. I looked around for her. There was no way she would have reached the back of the RV before I did, so she could not have been hiding there. She could not have hid in the ditches as the grass was too short. She could not have made it to and over the fence without a light in the little time it took me to get to the rear of the RV. I looked where she had been walking and I saw no sign that the dew on the grass had been disturbed. I drove the rest of the way home with the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. I was in a minor car accident. T-boned at an intersection. About 100 m before I hit the intersection, I felt a hand on my shoulder and a male tell me to slow down. I was already a few kms under speed limit, doing 55 in 60 zone. I was in the car with my then 3.5-year-old daughter. She was on passenger side in the rear and would not have been able to touch me through her restraints. Other car hit me at high speed in the front passenger side. If I'd been going any faster, my daughter would have taken the impact and not survived. A few days later my very healthy and uninjured daughter was babbling in her bedroom. I went to check on her and she told me she was just talking to Grandpa K. I asked where he was and she pointed to the corner of her room. I figured it was just her imagination and walked away. About a week after that, she was at my mum's house and said, not verbatim, "Hey Grandma, Sonny says to say he is sorry he left but he is looking after Mum for you." Grandpa K is my mum's dad. He died before I was born and Mum never really mentioned him or her mum, also dead before I was born, when I was growing up. Grandpa K's nickname was Sonny. I didn't even know that until that moment. I was at a friend's place, a very old wooden high-set house. Previous to this he told me that it was haunted. Drawers would open and close, cupboards would open and slam shut, etc., etc. I called bullshit as I'd never experienced this myself. Until one night, after playing WoW for too many hours and eating too much pizza, I decided to sleep in his lounge room as he had a futon. I heard shoes walking from right to left. Slowly, they were ladies' shoes, much like the traditional witches' shoes, with the big single brass buckle on the front. They walked, slowly, from right to left into the kitchen, paced around, and walked back from left to right. I can still hear the steps to this day. They were heavy. There was also a scuff like the heel hit too low before the foot was placed down every other step. There were only the two of us in the house, and he was asleep in his room. I shat bricks and told him the next day. He said he heard it as well and it's common. A few weeks later he said that all the doors and drawers were opening and slamming shut like something was losing its mind in the kitchen. After that a mirror flew off the wall in the second bathroom and shattered on the floor and everything immediately fell deadly silent. My boyfriend never had any issues after that. Mirror smashed on the floor. Our front door was open and the screen door was closed. We heard the screen door swing open and slam shut. We both went to the living room, then out onto the front porch. As soon as we went outside, we were hit by a thick, cloying floral/sweet smell. It smelled like funeral flowers, if you've ever smelled that scent before, just overwhelmingly strong and concentrated right in front of our house. We both felt kind of creeped out, so we went back into the house and to our bedroom. I sat on the edge of our bed, which faced the hallway, and one of our dogs came and hopped onto my lap. My boyfriend and I were speculating about what the door slamming and the smell was all about. I was looking straight ahead into the hall during a lull in the conversation, and I saw a dark shadow pass down the hall, go past our bedroom door, and into another room at the end of the hall. It was just, tall, vaguely human-shaped, and solid black, like the area where it was somehow just had all the light sucked out of it and you couldn't see through it. Our dog saw it, too. He went nuts, barking and growling and whining. For some reason that scared me more than anything, that he saw it too. I started crying and said I wanted to leave the house, so we got our dogs in the car and left. We were having plumbing problems anyway, so we ended up just staying in a hotel room that night. When we came back the next day, things seemed totally normal, and nothing like that has happened since. Definitely one of the spookiest things I've ever experienced.